Good morning, everybody. So this morning I have the comments on, as far as I know. Cross our fingers that the comments stay on. So how is everybody, first and foremost? And I just want you guys to know I'm in such a good mood. It's a no makeup Saturday for right now. Of course, when I get back to the hotel, I probably will change clothes again. I woke up this morning and had on the cutest outfit. I had on like a super cute like Michael Kors top, these shorts, and a pair of high heels. But listen, I decided that I wanted to jog, so I went ahead and threw on tennis shoes and a t-shirt, and I went and jogged because this didn't open until 8, and I was up at like 6. So anyway, I went for a jog, and you know what? It was so good. I downloaded that app I told you guys about. And me being so competitive, I always push it just a little. So I downloaded the Couch to 5K because my plan is I'm hoping that by this fall, I can go run a 5K. Who would have ever thought that that would be a goal of mine? I despise running. Like, if you see me running, it's always been a joke. Like, the horses are out, something got loose and the gates open, like, or somebody like hollered like, watermelon and fried chicken, and I'm like, watermelon and fried chicken? Like, seriously, like the taco truck like drove by with its siren on and he didn't stop, and there I go. Like, so literally we always joke because I'm just like, I've always laughed and said that I'm not incredibly athletic and I broke both ankles so I don't run, and here's the thing that I've learned about excuses, and I want you to hear me, okay? Excuses make so much sense. They like make all the sense in the world, meaning that I can say like, oh, I don't run, and I'm never gonna run a 5K because I have screws in both ankles, and I can't, like, listen, don't get me wrong, like, my ankles don't have a full range of motion, but I also used to be like, oh, I always wear flats and never wear heels because, y'all, for the last 2 months I've been wearing heels every time I go out. Platforms, heels. It's been horrible for my finances, but I bought 2 pair of gorgeous Balenciagas. I bought a beautiful pair that I'm just, of Louboutins, and then I have like a bunch of like little Steve Maddens that are like cute that I can kind of run at all the little local spots, because I decided, just because I'm a horse trader, that's what I do for a living. But my mom is not a horse person at all. My mother is a beautiful woman. My mom is extremely athletic. My dad played baseball. My dad golfs, and my dad golfs good enough. I know that a lot of you don't know this, but like, my dad golfs and bowls, and he trains racehorses, and he's amazing at everything he does. Like, if my dad picks it up, he can just do it. And I said to myself, I've been telling myself since I was in my 20s, I'm not very athletic. Like, what? Like, who told me that? Or was that just an excuse made by me, Or was that just an excuse? And I always, when my friends would be like, let's go out, and I'd be like, oh, I don't really have anything to wear, and they would all be in heels, and I would show up like in flats. I'd be like, oh, I have screws in my ankle, like, oh, I can't wear cute heels, oh, I'm a horse trader, I don't own, like, who told me that? Like, nobody told me that. I told myself that, and it was like a great excuse to not step out of my comfort zone. I also had said like, oh, I have, I'm 35, and I, kind of have thick thighs, and, I don't wear short shorts. I actually went 3 years with not wearing a pair of shorts because I was so afraid that the dimples on my thighs were gonna fucking offend somebody. And my excuse for that was like, oh, I'm a mom, and, like, there's a girl that goes to a lot of horse sales, and her husband are super nice, but I will tell you that when I go to horse sales, I dress appropriately. I mean, I actually dress to the nines. Like, I really do the most, because that's where I meet a lot of customers, and they're not there to meet me on this level. They're there to look at horses, and I don't need to be a distraction. I need to be an asset to that company. So it's different when we go to a horse sale. Like if we go to Billings, I mean, in the winter, I wear wild rags, I wear my hat, I have beautiful Anderson Bean boots. Shout out to Anderson Bean. I just went through Lucchese and looked at some of the boots there, and I'm telling you that if you ever buy a pair of boots, just buy Anderson Beans. They are fantastic. I have probably a dozen pair. I still have the very first pair of Anderson Beans I ever bought. It was before I met Jacob. He wore Lucchese's and I turned him on to Anderson Beans. And Jacob buys a pair of boots a month. I know you guys don't know that, but anyway, I turned him on to Anderson Bean and he'll never go back. But I still have the very first pair because listen, I sold a horse, a barrel horse, for pretty good money, and I had never had like a super nice new pair of boots. All of my tall boots had always been like hand-me-downs from trainers. Like there's Jessie Gates was from Illinois. I think she's in Ohio now, but she wore a 6.5. Her and I were real similar in size, and like every couple months she would like send me a pair of boots that were like on the verge of being wore out, and all of her breeches and stuff that like snagged. They were still super usable, but snagged, like she couldn't show in them. And because she trained professionally, they were just to where she couldn't be at the barn presenting herself in stuff that was like worn to that level. But I just schooled horses for Hartman and had no money, and she used to send me boxes of like hand-me-down stuff. But she told me one time that the reason she did it is because like she noticed, and this was so embarrassing for me, she noticed that when we went to Ocala to hits, that like I was looking through all the breeches and stuff and I never bought a pair, and she noticed that I wore the same 2 pair of breeches for pretty much the whole week. But listen, I would have to go to the laundromat and wash them because like I'm a clean ass bitch. Like let me tell you, I am not smelling, I am not. And she was like, you worked so hard. And she was like, I just kept thinking at home that I had like stacks of breeches that were like, I'm never gonna wear them again. And so she asked me, she was like, hey, what size do you wear? And I told her, and she was like, she tried to play it off when she first did it. It was like such a kind gesture. She was like, listen, I have like a ton of breeches and I've gained just a little bit of weight and you're just a touch thinner than me. And I was looking at her thinking, no, I'm not. Like, you're maybe littler than me. And she was like, look, I just want to send them to you. She was like, I was just going to gift them to like Goodwill, but you know, people wouldn't even know what they probably were. So let me just send them to you. The first box she sent had like 25 pair of like breeches. Like I never needed to shop for breeches again, ever. They were like mostly full seat, and back then Tailored Sportsman was like it. And like half of them were like over $100. And so anyway, when she sent them, she said, I always forget to pack them in the trailer to take them to like the resale shop or whatever. She was like, go through them, pick 5 or 6 pair you love. And she was like, the rest of them, next time y'all come down here, take them to Encourse. And I was like, okay, like, I think it was called something else back then. It's called Encourse now, but I think it was called, and I don't remember. I would have to think about it. But anyway, listen, when I resold them, and this is gonna be a funny story for you guys because this is like the hustler in me. Like, I actually called, and then some of them were like missing the button, whatever, and like I repaired all of them, and I ended up keeping like maybe 5 or 6 pair, and I sent the rest, and like they all sold like that. And I called Jessie and I was like, hey, this is really unfair. Like they just sent me a check for $1,000 for all the stuff that I sent down there to sell. Like, where do you want me to send this check? Like, and she was like, no. She was like, I want you to do nice things for yourself. She was like, go get your hair done. She was like, go get a pedicure. She was like, you are beautiful and you work so hard and you just deserve the nice things. She was like, these horses, because see, she was like, so we would get the horses in, and then I would get them fit and get them ready, and then she would take them and like tune them up and then sell them to her customers. And anyway, her and I just always had like a really good relationship. She would call and be like, okay, so what do I need to know about this one? Like, just so, you know, kind of behind the scenes. She was so fantastic to me that I feel like she shaped a lot of my mentality about helping people up without diminishing their pride, like without how you can make somebody feel good and make somebody feel like they belong and make somebody feel like they're better than they are so that they believe it. You know what I'm saying? Like, she always made me feel like I was like meat and potatoes when truthfully I was like just a napkin. And so just a funny story that I don't know what made me think about while I was jogging today, I think because as I was going by shops, I stopped and was like just looking at stuff that like when they open, I'm gonna go get this, and when that opens, I found a beautiful, beautiful purple felt hat, and I have one at the house that's too big. That was a gift, and it's beautiful. And a customer of ours sent me a beautiful lilac purple felt hat. And that's a story that I should probably tell too. You know, I have a lot of great stories because I interact with so many people, and I feel like sometimes I don't tell those stories because I just am always, I got to where every time I would get on social media, it was always like, here are the horses for sale and here's people that are shitty. Let's counteract that. And then I started thinking recently, like, how many badass stories I have. So this morning I woke up and one of my very best friends in the world, Teddy, is like on his way to a rodeo taking his like little sister to an all-girls rodeo. And like, I just thought to myself, I was like, damn, I should have gone with them. Like, I would have loved to have been there and like supported her. Like, I'm such a girl's girl. And it's just weird how much, like, as my mindset changes and my vibration elevates, if you would have told me a year ago that I would rather be going to an all-girls like junior rodeo to support my friend's little sister, just to be a part and like to let her know what a badass she was, and to be around all these people and to have to like conversate and cohabitate with human beings, I would have been like, you don't know me. I fucking hate people. Like, fuck that shit. And now I'm like, damn, next time I'm driving. We're taking my truck and trailer. Like, can I pretend to be the mom? Is there like a mom's, like, is there a mom's barrel race at the end? I'll enter. Like, we're a little low key say I'm the mom here. And of course, I'll just be like, Teddy, this is ours, right? And I'm gonna enter the mom's barrel race, Like, now I'm trying to figure out how to not only go, but participate. Jesus, what's wrong with me? Anyway, so fast forward back to my shit I'm talking about. So I'm jogging and I stop and I'm like looking like in the windows, and it just dawned on me like God, I almost cried. Like, I was standing there looking in the reflection and I thought, God, the 20-year-old me would be blown away. Y'all ever feel that? Do y'all ever look back and I've been doing a lot of shadow work lately. So in our past is a lot of trauma. We all have like a lot of trauma that we don't realize has manifested into different ways in our life, okay? And man, I've been having to visit like 8-year-old Tara and 15-year-old Tara and wild as a March hare 20-year-old Tara and dating a Mexican drug dealer Tara, and just like what made me, like what trauma in my life, what happened in my life, like what are the things that, and how could I have handled it different? Because listen, in my next go around, when I come back, I don't want to relive a lot of the lessons I learned in this life. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. So I literally have been revisiting. My therapist got this started, and then my shaman kind of pushed it over the edge where he's like, no, this is called shadow work. It's not just revisiting your childhood to address trauma. He's like, this is shadow work. So he kind of just pushed me over the edge of shadow work and listening to drums and meditating. And I'm just telling you that 20-year-old Tara would be so proud of where 35-year-old Tara stands. Probably wouldn't have believed that 15 years would have sent me a giant social media following, selling 7 figures worth of horses a year. I would have never believed that I would have had a barrel horse go to Italy, just a really wonderful yearling filly go to Great Britain, to have Apache go to Scotland. Like, I've spent a lot of time, and I have a relationship with Equiflight because of my knowledge of Equiglobe. We used to fly horses in and out all the time. Now, while those horses went to Miami and came in and out, and some to California, but for the most part, I really respect and love what Equiflight does. And I remember, and this is just the power of manifestation, and I want you to hear it from me. Like, I want you to hear it from like a very basic human being that is not like uber famous, like preaching to you about how they got their Ferrari. Okay, like listen to somebody that used to have to be given free breeches because the people around me noticed that I wore the same 2 pair for 14 days and just had to go to the laundromat and wash them continuously because I wasn't going to be dirty, but I also didn't have the money to own more than 2 pair because all of the pairs that I had at home had like holes in the thigh or holes in the ass where I was riding 8 or 9 horses a day in them and had wore them out to the point that they couldn't be seen in public because you might see my vagina. Okay, I can't tell you how many breeches I used to go to Walmart and buy like the denim patches and then just iron them on from the inside. Like you could still see the hole on the outside, but at least my cuckoo wasn't hanging out. At that point, I didn't have to worry that I was going to get on the mounting block, swing a leg over, and you were going to get a peep show. So, honestly, I want you to hear from me what positive mind thinking and what positive vibration and what changing your life can do, and that it is available to you. And I want you to hear it from me because I'm still in the stages where you can kind of see it. Like, I feel like the greatest service that there is in the world is motivational speakers that show us that they live in a 10,000 square foot home and they drive a Ferrari and they tell us that they're from the Bronx or they tell us that they're from the ghetto and they tell us, but listen, you guys know that about me. You've seen it. Like, I grew up in a trailer park. I grew up off of Arroyo Sereno in El Paso, Texas, in a single wide trailer to a mom that was by herself all the time because my dad was gone to the racetracks and my mother held down a job because it was steady income so that I could go to school and I could eat because my dad was trying to train racehorses and live his dream and he just wanted to win the All-American, and that's really his main focus. And so he was always gone and he was always... I watched my mom. I listened to men talk about, oh, she held me down, she held me down. And I always have said, and I heard Kevin Gates say it, and when he said it, I was like, man, I've said that for fucking 20 years. My mother didn't hold my father down. My mother built that motherfucker. Do you hear me? Like, I love my father, my dad, for the way that he was raised and where he came from. My dad is a prime example of just hard work pays off. Like, I don't know that my dad has the most positive mindset, and I wish that we could have that relationship and conversation, but we don't. We just, I mean, you know, my dad's the kind of person where I'm like, Dad, you have to stop talking like that about yourself and you have to stop thinking like that. And he's like, yeah, that's easy for you to say. And I'm like, you raised me. That's not easy for me to say. I came from you. Like, I was in the mud too. Like, but I don't, for the sake of my dad, I just am going to stop the conversation about him there and let you know that, like, from where my dad came from, my dad solely got to where he is based on hard work and hustle. My dad worked 7 days a week. He had a heart attack a year ago. 5 days later, he was saddling horses in the paddock. No, like, nope, my dad is just a fucking, like, grind, hit the grind, hit the grind, hit the grind, hit the grind. If you're depressed, okay. Right, sorry, that was Bailey Nepper. If you don't know Bailey, Bailey is my friend, and Bailey recently had a horse accepted into the Texas Best. It is a premier sell, and I want to wish her the best, and I want you guys to go to Flying Bee Equine. Bailey sells a different quality, different caliber horse. She sells kind of that $15,000 to $50,000 trail horses that do tricks. She has a horse going to the Texas Best, which the horses there last year I think averaged 50 or 60,000. So anyway, that was her. And I just want to give her a shout out because she's like 20 or 21 years old. Like, she's a baby. Like, Bailey is wet behind the ears, and can you imagine waking up at that age and having the motivation to start your own business and to do it on a level that she's doing it? So I hope that she knows this morning what an amazing anomaly she is, because she's blonde and she's skinny and she's beautiful, and she is what every man's dream is, you know, just that really skinny, bubbly, funny, blonde, like blonde, you know, early 20s. And I'm like, she does not have to work this hard. She could find a sugar daddy. She's gonna kill me. She's gonna be like, you, yeah. But listen, she hustles her fucking ass off. She also has a mom, I think, that's always been at the racetrack, and I think her dad probably had been around the racetrack too. Her dad, like, she sent me a picture the other day of them or something. He was like holding the horse, and I could tell from his legs that he's ridden a ton in his life. You know how guys that grew up at the track that galloped racehorses have like that or somebody that's roped a god ton of cutting horses. I was like, oh, I bet he's ridden 1 million horses in his life. But I know that her mom has been around the thoroughbred tracks her whole life. So Bailey just reminds me of me at that age, except for when I got to that point, I think that a decision that I made that was the bad decision for me, and I will tell you that Jacob, people have wondered why I stood beside him. Well, let's talk about Tara before Jacob. Let's talk about me. I worked for Equiglobe, and then when Equiglobe ended, I started dating a guy. I don't want to mention his name because, you know, like, you never want, like, I know that one of these guys' girlfriend, on and off, watches my videos. And I never want to be like, oh, when I dated blah, 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 because, man, that's disrespectful. Like, that was 20 years ago, not literally that long ago. But anyway, he lived with a professional barrel racer. I started barrel racing because Equiglobe moved back to Canada. I really didn't want to go because my mom had my little sister and she was a baby, and my mom was alone a lot. My grandmother was around, and I didn't have a good family dynamic growing up. Like, it's really strange to say this, and I want to apologize in advance because sometimes I have a hard time telling my story and my trauma because I never want to disrespect the people who loved me to the best of their ability. Like, my mom and dad never set me down and taught me how to work through my emotions or how to do certain things, and like, it has nothing to do with them being bad people. Like, they are amazing individuals. My mom watches my videos, and anytime I mention her or my dad, I bite my tongue because it's fucking no disrespect, man. My mom and dad, for where they started and what they knew and the way they were raised, gave me the world compared to what they had. And now it's my job to build on that so that I can give Tinley the universe. And I want you guys to understand that. So when I talk about any shortcomings in my growth, and, you know, as a child, I grew up in a trailer park, like my parents were fantastic and they busted their ass and got us out of the trailer park. You know what I'm saying? So like, I don't want to be that person that's like, yeah, my mom was a crackhead. No, my parents are fantastic. They don't drink. They've never done drugs. My mom and dad, my mom, you know, now has a medicinal marijuana card, and it's hilarious because I totally expected it my entire life. My mom is such a hippie, and my mom is all for like medical cannabis to help with anxiety and all of those things. And my mom is like a big like patriot. And anyway, my mom and I are very different because my mother would like, if you're my mom's friend, you're gonna get 975 text messages per day of all of the like conspiracy theories that are going on in the world, and I'm just the SAR and all kinds of things, and I'm just over here like, I'm sure that there's some truth to a lot of that. But so for those of you who are also on the conspiracy theory kick, meet my mom. Her name's Carolyn. She would love you. She's just a lot for me because I'm so focused on other things that when I fall down those rabbit holes, I lose focus, which, as you can see, I already have a hard time focusing. My ADHD is kicking in. Somebody screenshot this. Listen, it never fails that my live videos will end like this. And I'll be like scrolling and I'll come across one of my live videos where it's like pause, but you can hit play. And I'm like, why would anybody ever tap one of my videos when they end? Like, it's further proof that Instagram is smoke and mirrors because we all, no matter what, can look. Listen, it's all about the angles. Like, I can be, or I can. Okay, it's back to what I was saying. So, no disrespect to my mom and dad, but they, this poor lady is watching me and she is laughing with me, and I want to be like, you can come sit with me. I'm fun. You're alone. You don't have to be by yourself. So listen, my mom and dad raised me the best that they could. And as I've grown as a human, I look back and my mom, like, man, my mother worked for the Department of Transportation 5 days a week and would take some. Anytime they had travel gigs, whatever, and I would go stay with my grandparents because my mom could get paid extra for those travel gigs, plus she could travel, which they couldn't afford to do. Otherwise, my mom would have she used to get to go to every other month, they would send one person off to represent that Department of Transportation, and you would get to go to a city. It was every 2 or 3 months, and like live in not live, but stay like in a bed and breakfast, and they would send like, well, my mom got such a good reputation for just being like so kind and so funny that she was literally asked every time. So I would go stay with my grandma or my nanny for like a week so that my mom could go for like 5 or 6 days on these Texas tours. And what it helped was when she worked for the Department of Transportation, people would come in and they would be like, hey, we're from Arizona and we're tripping through. Have you ever been to Fredericksburg? And my mom was like, yes, I stayed there for 7 days a couple of months ago. You need to hit here, here, and here. And they would give my mom like $500 spending money, pay for all of her hotel, and then like pay for her meals. And it was like my mom's dream job. So my mom, it just was such a blessing because like my mother always wanted to be a flight attendant, but my mom got pregnant with me, so my parents got married, and my mom knew nothing about horses, so my dad married somebody that, I'm not saying, it ended up being the biggest blessing though, because like my dad had been around like women at the racetrack and women, you know, whatever, but my mom was just a really good, solid, like hold him down no matter what kind of woman. And she worked that job, and then she would take all of the jobs that were my mom. And you have to remember that this was in 1991 that my mom started working there, and my mom was making $15 an hour. So back then it was insane money. My mom was like the fucking goat, and she would get these travel deals where she got to travel all over Texas. And my mom ended up meeting a lady from Texarkana named Camille, and my mom, she was redheaded, beautiful. My mom and Camille became best friends, and then the Department of Transportation ended up kind of giving them like a position to where they were basically like, my mom and Camille would every other month go for a week to these places, and it got to where it was pretty frequent, and they would meet and tour these cities together and then write like basically what was great about each city, so that when the Department of Transportation put out their guides, Camille and my mom are the ones who had reviewed the bed and breakfasts, who had reviewed the restaurants, and my mom loved it. So after my dad won the All-American, my dad wanted to buy a farm and he wanted to move away from Texas, and my mom, I thought they were gonna divorce. I was like 8 years old, my dad wins the All-American, and my dad's like, we're buying a farm, we're not living in the trailer park anymore, like I made $1 million, let's go. My mom's like, no, I'm not leaving this job. So it took until finally November of 1997, my mother finally decided that it was best to leave El Paso. And it was because, one, my mom's supervisor that had created that job and done all of that, he was retiring. The new supervisor that came in, so it's just a God thing, like the new supervisor that came in wanted to do away with the travel program because it was no longer necessary, because we already have the travel guide, and you know, it'll be good for 5 years or whatever, we don't need to revise it for 5 years. And they were going to put my mom back in a position that was like basically a huge downgrade. Like my mom was going to have to just be like at the Department of Transportation handing out flyers, and it was like you know, I think it was like only an $8 an hour job or whatever. So long story short, instead of my mom like doing these reviews and writing these guides and being in the office like helping people plan trips, when the new supervisor came in, they restructured everything, and it's just hard to go from being like in this to nothing. So my mom was like, okay, I'm ready to quit my job. So in October of 1997, my parents bought the place in Oklahoma. And it just so happened that right after my birthday, we had a birthday party for me at the end of September in El Paso. And I know that this is really crazy, but just 2 weeks before that, our next door neighbor's son had been shot in middle school. We lived in the Cañutillo school district, so you can go back and look. And in 1997, the little girl that lived next door to us, Veronica, her older brother got shot, and sadly, it was over an altercation that involved her and I. So anyway, basically, we had been being like approached by these little fucking hoodlum kids that were like trying to like talk to us about being jumped into gangs and everything. And her big brother was like, fuck that shit. Like, his name was Tony. He was like, we're not doing this. Anyway, they headed into school one morning. Some older kids drove by the school and shot him out in the parking lot. and they only hit him once in the thigh, and that scared my mom to death. My mom was like, fuck El Paso, fuck this shit, because you have to remember, I'm green-eyed, I'm blonde-haired, I'm the only, they used to call me a güerita because I can speak Spanish. All of my friends were Hispanic, and it was just me. So Sunny Baker was the only other blonde. She didn't have light eyes though, and she was a güerita. A güerita is a light-skinned, light-eyed, light-haired Hispanic person. And so basically I was not a güerita, I'm a gringa. But who knew, because I had just been raised there. I went to Jose Damian, then I was in the Canutillo school district, so it's really different. So her brother got shot over Veronica and I, you know, him trying to protect us. And then we had a birthday party for me on, like towards the end of September. And one of the boys that came to my parties, dad and uncle came, and his uncle had just been kind of out of jail not very long. And about a week after my birthday party, he started stalking my mom and I. This is not a joke. It was super fucking scary. My dad is always gone because people kind of wondered like what the fuck happened. So he started stalking us. You know, my mom had to get like, you know, like the cops involved. Anyway, long story short, he ended up getting arrested at like 3 o'clock in the morning trying to break into our little house or whatever. And my mom was just done. Like, her job was changing, and this was super fucking scary. Like, it's super scary for you and your daughter to be alone. My mom does not ever want to have to shoot anybody. My mom is a very passive person. My mom is not, I can just tell you, and this is the God's honest truth, there's two kinds of people in the world. I can carry a handgun down my back pocket and just keep the clip in my pocket, and I can be so calm and so fast-handed that I can jerk that motherfucker out, have it loaded, and have it in your face so fast it'll make your head spin, and I will blow your head off to protect me and mine. To protect me and mine. Now, I ain't getting in nobody else's business. I don't give a fuck. That's between you. If you let your husband beat you and he drags you out of here by your hair and you keep going back to him like I saw nothing, I heard nothing, like that's your bullshit. You want to go back to him? I'm not getting in the middle of it. Don't call me. But you come in this motherfucker right here and you think you're going to rob it with me sitting here? Let me just tell you. I will have a gun in your face so fast it will make your head spin. My mother is not like that. My mom is the kind of person that will freeze in fear. My mother could have the gun in her hand and not be able to point it. My mother's the kind of person that just, it's no. So my dad was there the next morning, and he literally showed up with a U-Haul, and he was like, fuck it, put all of our shit in the U-Haul. He moved us to a hotel in Oklahoma while he started shopping for properties, because he said I was not going to grow up in El Paso, because my dad was smart enough to know that I am a hoodlum. I'm a hoodlum. Like, by nature, by natural nature, for whatever reason, I loved hood rat behavior. Natural hood rat. Fucking hood rat through and through. And my father said, it's not fucking happening. So 10-year-old Tara got to pack all of her shit because 10-year-old Tara thought she was 20-year-old Tara. And my mother was passive aggressive, was not going to be somebody that could defend us. I probably was going to get like fucking kidnapped, thrown in a trunk, and sex trafficked, because I always had myself places I shouldn't have been. So my dad moves us to Oklahoma. That was fucking shocking. Mind you, my father moves us to Oklahoma, Henrietta, Oklahoma. And I went to 4 elementary schools in a month and could not make that shit work. I just had never. The amount of disrespect in 10-year-old white girls in Oklahoma would have got them fucking beat up in the parking lot. Do you hear me? In El Paso, Texas. So at this point in my life, I'm 10, I may be 11, 97. See, I would have been 9, 10. I'm 11 at this point. So 11-year-old Tara has never been disrespected to her face that you didn't catch hands at 11 years old. And my dad was smart enough to realize that I was turning into a hood rat, so he moved me to Oklahoma, where 11 and 12-year-old little girls are mean as fuck. They are mean as fuck. And there's no loyalty amongst Like, I'm telling you, when you grow up in El Paso, you learn. You learn. Because you got your ass whipped by somebody's big sister in the parking lot, that if you don't start any shit, there just won't be any shit. Ain't nobody give a fuck. Ain't nobody trying to do nothing to you that you didn't cause. But you moved to Oklahoma, and all of a sudden, so the first school my parents sent me to was Dewar. And it was like population 11. I think that in Dewar, maybe there was 2 classrooms with like 10 or 11 kids in each one. So I've been having to revisit this lately, you know. And there was a boy named Nick Stevens, and he was super cute. And he had a little girlfriend. Well, she was older than us, but boy, he liked me. And then none of the girls liked me. And so they literally did there's no room at our table for you. And I'm the bitch that said, well, there's an empty fucking seat, and I'm sitting there, and if you don't like it, all of you can get up from this table and eat somewhere else. Well, when one of them said, we said you're not sitting here, and pushed my food off in the floor, guess what 11-year-old Tara did? I just fucking... So I got expelled. I wasn't welcome there anymore. My mother was mortified. So then I got to go to Midway. That's kind of down the road from our house. That was a fucking adventure as well. And you know what? For the most part, the girls there were fantastic. I'm still friends with Ashton McCarty. I love her. I watch her from a distance. We were friends in elementary or whatever. But listen, they had already established their friend groups. They had kind of already established their friend groups. And you have to remember that I was raised in El Paso. So at that time, I had a little bit of like a Hispanic twang to my voice. Like, my favorite thing in the world to say at that point was like, pinche way, ay, you know, like talk with my hand, because that's how I had been raised. Like, that was just it for me. I didn't fucking know. So I was different. And I went to school there, and it was just really hard. There was one class with my grade, and it had like 10 people, and they were all okay. I will tell you that for the most part, that's a really small, laid-back town. Like, I still talk to pretty much every single person, because I dated a couple of guys from there as I got older. Just two. Just two. But listen, yeah, and like, so the thing that hurt me there is I was super advanced. Like, we had already so Miss Nolan's 3rd grade class, we were like the state algebra champions in 3rd grade. Like, I was already doing algebra. So anyway, at that school, it was just very apparent that they were at a much slower pace. I was failing all my classes because I just mentally was just way further ahead. And they actually advised for my mom to see about taking me to Tulsa to like one of the Christian academies, but my mother was smart enough to know that I wouldn't make it one day in a Christian academy. Like, it just, I mean, I probably needed to go there, or maybe even a Catholic academy where the nuns could have busted my ass a lot. But my mom was like, that's not gonna work. So anyway, that summer comes, and my mom talks to me, and she's like, I think I want to enroll you in Okmulgee. Okay. So Okmulgee's the biggest school around there, and I end up going to Okmulgee. And it's dominantly black. It's probably 75 to 80% black, and it's much bigger. The academic program was much better. But I got this mouth, you see. So now I'm in the 6th grade, maybe the 7th grade at this point, coming into 7th grade. And I go there, and I make it about a month before I get into my first fight. And I don't just get into a fight. I get into a knockdown, drag out, jump each other, fucking busted all the blood vessels in both eyes, busted my lips, like broke knuckles kind of fight. Like, I mean, I'm in the 7th grade, and like, bitch, you want to throw hands and you want your friend to jump me, like, I'll fight both you bitches. And my mom is like devastated, because my mother is the most meek, quiet, calm. Like, you could say boo, and my mom would be like, I am so sorry that this is not going well. I hope you have a blessed day. And I'm like, did you fucking say boo to me, bitch? So where I get this personality from is my dad's mom, Nanny Paula. God rest her soul, because I got every ounce of I will fight you, knock your teeth out. So just know, my mother, and I didn't get expelled because they said, she didn't technically start it, but, man, it's stupid. I'm in the 7th grade, and it's over a boy, imagine that, and his little girlfriend and her little friend, decided that I needed to leave him alone, and I just proceeded to tell them, bitch, you need to tell him to leave me the fuck alone. Like, so anyway, I get jumped, except for it didn't really go the way they thought because, like, I fight. So my mom comes and gets me, and she's like, okay, so I'm taking you out of school here. And I'm like, no, fuck that. I'm like, I fuck that. I want them to come back to school. Like, you ain't. My mom's like, okay, my little hood rat. No. You need to shut your mouth. So my mom sits me down and tells me, like, I don't know you. Like, I don't know where you came from. She was like, this behavior in El Paso was never present, but you got along with everybody. But we'd established pecking order in kindergarten. Like, we knew since kindergarten that I would throw hands. We knew since kindergarten that I would pull your hair, knock you down, and kick you. So, like, I didn't have these problems in El Paso. Not like this, you know what I'm saying? Like, I grew up with those kids. Like, I went to pre-K and kinder and 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th and 5th grade, and by then, you have your clique of friends. You know who you belong with, and people know to leave you the fuck alone. So anyway, my mom takes me out of Okmulgee because my mom feels like it's a detriment to my character because clearly there's hood rat shit going on all the time. And my mom puts me in Morris. So I am now at my 4th school in 2 years, or what the fuck ever, 24 months. And I stayed in Morris until my junior year of high school, where I proceeded to drop out after Christmas break of my junior year because I just fucking couldn't do it anymore. But that's a whole other trauma. So I went to Morris. I didn't really get along. I mean, I did. Like, I tried. I can only think of 2 fights that I got in the whole time. And again, I never got expelled because it was Tara didn't start it, but I was quick to be mouthy. And I can tell you that the fights that I got in were a lot of times because girls wanted to tease me or make fun of me. I think I was a freshman, and this girl told me some shit about, like, you would be so cute if you didn't wear Walmart clothes. And I turned around and I said, yeah, well, you would be so fucking cute too if your face didn't look like that. I said, at least I can change my clothes. And she was like, you're such a fucking bitch. This is why no one likes you. And I said, I'm not the fucking bitch. Like, I'm minding my own business, and here you come. So anyway, that resulted in me just beating the absolute brakes off of her. So I did get suspended my freshman year. And then my mom demanded that I was in the ag program so that I had things to do and was busy. So my dad bought me like some show heifers, and I started welding. Mr. Golden was fantastic. He was our ag teacher, and he tried to get me as many classes as he could in the ag building to keep my very big mouth and my shitty attitude out of the rest of what was going on. And then I golfed all of high school, but I started dating a guy my freshman year that was fantastic for me, and I owe him a lot of credit because he was a sophomore and I was a freshman, and his name was Jeremy, and I owe him probably everything. Let me tell you why. He walked up to me one time and he said, hey, I'm Jeremy, like, I've been seeing you. He's like, I want to know if you want to go somewhere Friday night. Like, I just got my license, like, and I'm like, okay, yeah, like, where are we gonna go? And he's like, I don't care, you tell me. So anyway, at this point, this is like the first, like, super normal. I mean, I kind of had, like, dated a little bit and flirted a little bit, but, like, yeah, so he takes me to dinner, and over dinner, he's like, just basically telling me, like, you are so pretty, and, like, why are you so, like, why do you have such a chip on your shoulder? He was like, you walk around like you are ready to beat somebody up. He was like, man, and he tells me, like, yeah, we've been talking about it in the locker room, like, all the guys are like, man, she's cute, but fucking that bitch. So anyway, he just had the nerve to like and I was like, you know, fuck you, man. Like, I don't need this shit from you. And he's like, no, calm down. He was like, I just need to know, like, what's going on. He was like, I just want to talk to you about it. And I was like, I thought you brought me to dinner because you thought my ass was cute. You know, not because you wanted to talk to me about my fucking problems. But listen, he never gave up. He just chipped away. The next day, like, as soon as the bell rang for lunch, we had off-campus lunching, he was standing outside my class. And he was like, hey, you want me to carry your books? Like, where you want to go eat? And I'm like, I'm not going to eat. Like, I'm fucking not. He's like, yeah, I noticed you never go eat. He's like, come on, let's. So I'm telling you, like, he was so instrumental in the shaping of my character from, like, hood rat, fight you, probably going to end up a gangster Tara, to, like, very normal. So he may have been a junior and I was a freshman. So Jeremy was 2 or 3 years older than me. But so anyway, over time we just became such good friends, and like that was my only friend. Like that was my only friend in life. Like I rode horses. Like I'd get up in the morning and go to my dad's barn and I would feed horses, help clean stalls, go to school. Anytime I could leave at lunch and just go home, I would. That came a little later when I could drive, but at that point, that was my only friend in life, and it got to where we did everything together. And then he played football. So I would go to the football games, and I would go, and he played baseball. When baseball season rolled around, I started to realize that he wasn't just a baseball player. He could pitch 90 miles an hour ambidextrously. He could pitch consistently in the mid to high 80s right-handed, and he could consistently pitch left-handed because he was left-handed. He could very consistently pitch high 80s, low 90s, and several times, especially once he got in college, he pitched over 100 miles an hour. And I mean, we're talking like, he got redshirted, and it was the worst thing because it was devastating for me. So this is my only friend in the world. This is my everything. Like, and it got to where him and I built a life. Like, it was, I'm going to go to a junior college so I can get drafted. And this was just, I mean, we had our plan. So he gets into a junior college so that he can get drafted. The call comes, he's going to get drafted, and he gets tendonitis and his elbow gets inflamed. And so the college and the major league team that was going to take him end up sending him to a minor league team. But he has to go to rehab. So he's been rehabilitating, whatever. And at this point, you have to remember, I think I'm a junior and this is basically, I'm a junior in high school. Yes, because it happened after Christmas. It happened in January. So he was a freshman or a sophomore. He was a sophomore. Freshman, sophomore. I don't know. Long time ago. So anyway, he gets the call that this major league team wants him. All is going good. He gets hurt. So basically, at Christmas time, we break like from high school, break from college, and he comes home and he starts physical therapy and rehab for the elbow because after Christmas, he's got to finish this one semester in college, and then that summer, he was going, I think, to the Houston Astros, and they were going to rehabilitate the elbow and try to get him prepped. So he didn't make the draft, but anyway, he got signed or whatever. So anyway, he signs a contract for upper six figures, which is more money than either of us have ever seen in our life. Could have been more had he not been hurt at the time. And it was kind of cool because, all of a sudden he has money. But they'd put him on a lot of muscle relaxers and shit to kind of rehab that elbow. And he comes home from Christmas, and I will never forget this. He calls and he's like, what are you doing tonight? And I'm like, I've got to do this and this. What are you doing? And he's like, I think we're going to go out to the Roadhouse, whatever. I'm like, go ahead. I don't drink. Y'all go on. Like, the thing I don't want is to be around a bunch of people. And he's like, I tell you what, I'll call you when I leave there. He calls me from the bar. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. And I'm like, what the fuck are y'all doing? And he's like, man, he starts joking. And he's like he had taken his like pain medication and then had gone and was like drinking. And he was like telling me, he's like, it's a whole other drunk, like just being stupid. And I'm like, I'm getting mad. So our last conversation was awful. I'm like getting mad. I am like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Like, why would you come back to this shitty ass motherfucking little town and like I'm like just like you should be fucking taking care of yourself, like you don't need to be at the fucking bar, like you should be icing your elbow, like I mean I am just like fucking mother henning this motherfucker just and he's like, you know what, and he was like, shut the fuck up, he was like, you have no room to talk, like I mean we're just, and it was so weird because I stopped and I said, you know what, you're right. And I am not a you're right, let me apologize kind of girl. So I tell him, you know what, you're right. You do you. You have fun. You just go drink all you want and you live it up, because I'm telling you, come the end of this break right here, when you go back, like you're gonna fucking get right, because you've got to get that elbow right, because like we're not living in this shitty ass small town for the rest of my life. Like, and he starts laughing and he's like, I got you, baby girl, I got you. He was like, our life is nothing but up from here. And I started laughing and I hung up the phone, and I remember about 3 o'clock in the morning waking up to this gut-wrenching feeling because he didn't call me when he left the bar. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, it's not. So I call his phone, and I'm like, this motherfucker, you know. So I go back to bed. I get up at about 5:45 to go to Hartman's, and I get a phone call, and he had been killed that night, drunk. And I don't know what happened to me in that moment, but it was not good, because I dropped out of high school. I lost everything that I ever thought I wanted in life. And from there, it was like a slippery little slope kind of back downhill. Seriously. But you know what? The reason I'm telling you guys this story is because I see a lot of people. Use the excuse like, yeah, well, I was dealt a bad set of cards, or I was, this was taken from me, or I've had a lot of tough breaks, or an excuse. And they make sense, you know? But can you imagine if I had said, fuck it. I mean, I dropped out of high school. I started, when Jeremy died, there was there was quite a bit of money in his bank account, and his mother gave me 10% of it. Darla to this day comes and sees Tinley, my daughter. She didn't have any other kids, and I still talk to her, and she comes and sees my daughter when she's at my mom's. She's come and seen her a couple times, and anyway, it's just still to this day like one of those things that changes your life to the core, to the point that like I made such bad decisions after that. And his mom was so fair. She owed me nothing. She paid his car off, and she tried to give it to me, and I didn't want a car. So anyway, she traded it in for her a new vehicle. She gave me 10% of what was in his bank account. And it was like the first time in my life I had just a little bit of money, like of my own. And Equiglobe, I was still working for Equiglobe, still hustling really hard. And then the next year, Equiglobe comes to me and they tell me, hey, we're moving back to Canada because we don't have health insurance here. Sabina, the wife, had stepped back into like a old-fashioned hay fork. You know, the ones with the spikes, like a hay fork, not like a pitchfork. And put a spike all the way through her calf to the bone, and it was horrible, and the health insurance here in the US is not good. So they decided to move back to Canada, and at that point I had dropped out of high school. I probably should have went, but I didn't. I thought, you know what, I'm gonna try to work for Joey in Tulsa. He had offered me a job several times, and so I stayed. This has been like, I would have graduated high school by this point. They gave me like 6 months to a 9 month, like, we're gonna put the place for sale. When it sells, we're going back, you know. I worked for them probably for about 9 months after that. And then when they left, I went to work for Joey, and fantastic human, but really just very different mindset than Hartman or even Jesse. Very like, I need you to work from 5 to 10, and I need you to ride every horse in the barn, and I need you to also help clean stalls, and I need to pay you $250 a week kind of thing, and call it a working internship. Except for I had been riding Grand Prix level horses since I was in the 8th grade, basically. It was the summer between 8th grade and my freshman year that I started cleaning stalls at that place for money, and then they started not being able to find a rider, and they started saying like, hey, can you ride? I remember Hartman trying to teach me my diagonals, and I remember him saying, other diagonal, and squeeze the lemons. That's what he used to call it, you know, because those big horses are strong, and he'd want them, you know, he really liked to keep them behind the vertical. I mean, the German in him really liked to keep them overflexed, over-collected behind the vertical, and they were huge. And I can still remember looking in the mirror and having muscles in my upper arms that a high school girl shouldn't have, just from... And I will tell you, when I left there, Joey used to get so mad because I had a working look. Elbows out, like real stiff, you know, down, like just a very working look to my posture and my equitation. And he was like, I'm never going to be able to get you to do any of my hunters. And I'm like, I didn't grow up on a hunter. I learned how to ride on an $80,000 stallion from the Netherlands. Not ride, but how to tune and that's what was available. And he was actually probably the brokest because he was a little older. And when Hartman started like teaching me my diagonals and just really, and I had Ubos. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but the saddles that they always rode were Ubos, the most fantastic German made saddle in the world. And they were kind of like 3-day event saddles. Like you could do cross country, stadium jumping, dressage, you know, they were a very versatile saddle, real deep seated. So I learned in a big deep seated German made Ubo on a 17 2-hand tall stallion that was actually kind of more of something they had kept around because they shipped semen all over the US on him, and he was more of an investment for breeding purposes. But he didn't want to try to teach me. They needed a rider, and he didn't want to try to teach me on some of the younger impressionable horses. So I got to ride the stud, and he was the biggest, strongest, you know. And then came along Serrano. And Serrano was fantastic. He was almost 18 hands. He was horse of a lifetime. Jessie ended up buying him to be her Grand Prix horse. But when he first came in, he was the first big Grand Prix jumping horse that I got to start kind of riding and doing with. And he was so strong. And his flying lead changes were incredible. And he would buck every time. Every time he did a flying lead change, he would whip his tail and buck. I mean, just, God. So that's what I was learning on. So when they moved, I was not a show student. I was the working student, and I had a very working look, and I was strong, and I was a little heavy-handed. Not because I meant to be, but most of those horses had such a dressage foundation, and they needed to be really, really kept on the vertical. But looking back now, I can tell you that not knowing then, but knowing now, they were really behind the vertical. He liked to keep those horses frothy and just, I can still remember that for photographs, they would dress me up, top hat, put me in a dressage saddle, and he would take like a whipped, not whipped cream, but like marshmallow whip, and whip around their mouths for the photographs so that they looked like they had foamed really, really heavily, and kind of keep them behind the vertical, and we would take photographs. And I can still remember trying to keep the fucking marshmallow whip like out of my hair, out of their hair, off of everything. So it was just a very wild experience. So I will say that after Jeremy died, I fell into work, and that probably kept me sane. But then when Equiglobe left and I went to work for Joey, and I was so underappreciated, and he wasn't as structured as Hartman. Like, Hartman would tell me, like, pull your head out of your ass, get on the fucking horse and shut your mouth. And like, I needed that. Like, I'm not a soft ass bitch. I needed you to fucking tell me what to do. And when Joey was just kinder and softer, but not as structured, and would kind of like passively aggressively like everything. It was just a really bad fit, and I started to get kind of depressed, and I still had a little bit of money, and I ended up quitting. And I started dating a guy that lived with a barrel racer, and I thought, I am going to barrel race. Like, I've sold tons and tons and tons of horses to barrel racers. I've ridden a lot of horses off the track for 30 days and kind of put a dressage type handle. And people loved it because they were still very forward in the bridle, so I didn't have them I didn't have them hiding from you. I could really get a horse broke at the pole and really bending in the ribs and really wanting to cross over and just do very forward but yet very collected things. So this is a funny story that you guys don't know, but it's how I got Mortis. And I started going out on my own to horse trade, and I started trading around. I ended up with Mortis, and because of the money that Jeremy had left, I did have the money to go barrel race a little bit, and that horse won a lot. But the next year after him, my colt I sold. I had two, and I was an okay rider fast. I don't get nervous, but I sold both of them, and that was the worst thing I did because it didn't keep me busy through the year. And I basically started dating a guy. I dated the guy that lived with the barrel racer. We broke up, and then I dated a guy that barrel raced, a futurity trainer, for about a year while I had Mortis. And then after I sold Mortis and had money, and I decided that I was going to be a hood rat again. Imagine that. And I started dating a guy that I met at the match races, and it was just a toxic thing. And I look back on it and I wonder, like, I had so much going for me. Okay, I had so much going. I had enough money to go buy prospects. I was selling prospects. I was doing all of that, and just so broken that it wasn't enough. So I started dating this guy, and while I'm dating him, his uncle gets fucking popped for taking tens of thousands of dollars worth of cocaine on the horse trailers across the United States, and just toxic, and just stupid. And I always used to say things like, well, I don't do the drugs, so, if he sells them or whatever, it's none of my business. Like, what somebody else wants to put in their body, like, that's none of my business. Like, and one time somebody said, like, oh, people like you make the best, like, plugs because you don't do the drugs. Like, you don't do the drugs. Anyway, that was a very toxic part of my life that I don't talk about, that made my dad and I's relationship very bad. My dad and I had no relationship for a couple of years, and man, I remember when I decided that that was not a good relationship for me, because I just got to where I got indicted in the federal fucking court. And I decided at that point, like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I'm not selling any horses right now. I don't even own a horse. I didn't own a horse for 2 or 3 years. For those of you who didn't know, I didn't own any horses for like 2 or 3 years. I would buy, like, so Yvonne would, like, buy me a horse off the track or something, and I would get it kind of broke, and I would sell it, like, on Barrel Horse World here and there, but I didn't need the money. And it was for the first time in my life that, like, I didn't need to hustle. And I got myself in so much fucking trouble because I was bored, and I have a lot of up here. I have a lot of up here. So I have a lot, my brain is like, and when your brain is always like thinking and doing and thinking and doing and thinking and doing, it's hard to stay out of trouble if you're not busy or tired. So anyway, I will never forget this. So we go down to Mexico City, and I came across like a statue, and I had been contemplating leaving this relationship. It was super toxic, but I didn't really have any money at this point because I didn't have to work. I didn't have to do anything but like drive and do whatever. And I had just really realized like the toxicness surrounding the situation. Like, I'm in a relationship with a guy that I don't have to work. He fucking takes care of me, but like sometimes he'll get spun out on coke and talk to me stupid. And like, still to this day, his family and I are close. I remember when I left that relationship, the rumors around the racetrack, my dad came to me and he said, I heard that you left him. And I said, I did. And my dad said, the rumor is that they're going to kill you. Like, what's going on? Talk to me. And I said, no. I said, it's okay. It's all right. And my dad said, how do you know? And I said, because there is loyalty amongst, not thieves, but there's loyalty amongst all of us. And it's taken me this long to ever talk about that part of my life because, like I said, I got indicted. I mean, into federal court, not once, but twice. And I remember when my 5 years was up and like they could no longer indict me on anything. And I was so fucking proud. I was so glad. I was like, I could never be fucking indicted based on the Trap Uptown. Like, I can't. So when Kevin Gates sings and he's like, I pray to God that we don't get indicted about the Trap Uptown, I'm like, whew. Amen. And that's the part of my life that, like, I mean, it's a very small part of my story. It's a couple of years. But in those years, I mean, I went places and did things I'm not proud of. I saw shit. I mean, I've been shot at. I've shot back. Like, I mean, I'm just telling you, like, there's just things that I've been through that if my hate group, when they hear this, they're going to be like, listen, Linda's, you can talk about me all you want, but you don't know me. And you don't know how far I've come to overcome where I've been. And until I get real and I get right about sharing all aspects of what I've been through, there's not anybody on here who can appreciate the Tara today because you don't know the Tara yesterday, and you sure as fuck don't know about all of the things that I've done. And listen, you can say like, it makes me hate you more. That's fine. I hated myself for a long time. I hated everything that I had put myself through and all of my dumb decisions. And there was a point that I would look back and just not even hardly be able to stomach where I had been. And you know what? I think that the reason that I still get phone calls to this day from that person's aunt, that person's, is because loyalty is the one thing I never didn't have. When that relationship ended and I was done, there was no petty vindictive shit. There was no run to the cops. There was just what I can tell you where I sit today is something I learned in that relationship, and it was that people only know what they know. Because the more I would talk to him about doing things, like I remember towards the end of that relationship, and I started saying like, hey, I think that there's a problem because the whole point is you can sling the dope and not do it, but like when you start doing it, you know, you cheat, you fucking are crazy. And the problem with being a little spiritual is you can justify a lot of people's bad actions towards you because you know that they're just doing the best they can with where they are, and it's nothing to do with me. Like, all of his actions had nothing to do with me. It wasn't who I was as a person. It was just shit behavior, you know? And so I tried to talk him into like, let's just go and do things legitimate. And the reason I can talk about it now, and I had this conversation with his aunt, and I've had this conversation with his brother. And in fact, I had this conversation with him about a month and a half ago when he called to just check in on me. And it was the first time I had heard from him in years. And I just said real nicely, like, hey, here's the deal. I think I want to write a book, and I think I want to talk about stuff, but I want to talk to you. Like, if I don't name you and your family, like, how do you think it's going to go? But it's been so long now that this is why I can. There's only so many years federally that anybody can do anything about things. So, like, my 5 years was up several years ago where I can no longer be indicted or charged or any fucking thing else. 5 years. And, which I never did. Like, I guess I could have been like a co-pilot. But, anyway, I'm gonna write the book. I'm gonna write the book, and I'm gonna tell it all, you know? And I can. And that's what's great. And you know what? I remember at the end of that relationship when God changed my heart. It's why I have such a belief in God and such a belief in a higher power, because I was so in love with just the grind of it and the, you know, the parts of the lifestyle and all of that. Didn't even, like I said, I didn't even really own horses. I would take a match horse here and there and start it and put it online and whatever, and we'd go match horses and whatever. But I started saying, like, let's go legit. Like, let's take the money that you're making and start legit. Like, let's go legit. Let's go back to the States, start legit businesses. Let's do it. And some of you are shocked, but some of you that knew me, you know bits and parts of this. You don't know my side. You just know that people were like, yeah, I think she dates somebody in the cartel, and I think they did this, and I think that. And there were so many people that spread rumors. There was even a rumor on Barrel Horse World that I had been caught up in some shit and like I was gonna get killed. And no, when I left that relationship, even my father had been like pre-warned that, oh man, Greg, I'm sorry, you're gonna bury her. No. I never worried because I didn't do things shitty. And when I got indicted the second time, it was for some shit in Georgia. And my record is super spotless because I'll tell you, like I told them, I don't know. Well, the cameras show you were there. I don't know. I just rode in the vehicle. Well, what's his name? I don't know. I didn't ask. Well, who was, don't know, didn't ask. Well, what were y'all doing there? Vacation? I don't know any of that. Well, how much? I can tell you the contents of my travel bag, what the vehicle I got in looked like, and that when we were going there, it was for vacation, and this is what we did. We went to, you know, we went to the beach, we went and did this, we went to Atlanta for 2 nights. I don't know. The rest of it, I don't know. How'd you get the scar on your forehead? I don't know. Drunk. Stupid. Fell. Really? Is that how it happened? Yep. How'd you get the scar on your shin? I fell. I fell down. I fell down. And so at the end of the day, I know nothing except for the contents of my travel bag and that we went on vacation in Georgia. And so I have always been that loyal. Like I said, if you and your old man get into it, and I know for a fact that he has whooped you over and over again, and you just keep going back, I don't know it, see it, feel it, nothing. I'm over here. But let me tell you something. Let him be stupid to you for the first time, you know, where you don't deserve it, embarrass you. I'll stand up for you. I'll be that one. So I've always been like loyal to a fault. And now that I'm going to write the book, I'm just letting you guys know it is going to be a lot of me taking weekends off to just hone into my creativity and word things in every chapter that don't involve or offend anybody that's been a part of my life. But every single person that has come into my life has shaped my journey and who I am. So then, when that relationship ended, I was single for probably a year. Probably a year. Nah, I mean, I dated 2, like, just went on dates. One of them was a bull rider that couldn't stay sober. He liked meth. And that didn't last but 2 seconds, because I had already dated somebody and held somebody down that couldn't stay sober. And the difference between meth and cocaine is that there's not, at the end of the day. I think meth makes you even fucking crazier, and I'm not doing it. So the first sign of drug addiction, I was fucking out like the fucking lights, like no fucking way. Addiction is something I don't do. Addiction is just, I'm telling you that I watched somebody that loved me and would have killed for me turn into somebody that would lay hands on me due to addiction, due to doing the coke instead of selling the coke, you know, and then getting yourself in the position that the profit was being done instead of had. And anyway, I've been through it. I've been through some shit. And why I never got on drugs is probably just because God made me a viceless person, because I had every opportunity, and I look back on it and I'm so grateful that I didn't make those decisions because I had every opportunity to. And I'm telling you guys that the main thing I want to teach younger people is we look at people that do drugs and we know what drugs lead to. We see meth addicts, we see people that do coke and they stay spun out. We see all of those things, and yet somehow a lot of teenagers and early 20-year-old people think, I can do the drugs and not let them do me. That never works. Like, you can say all day long that you're a functioning addict, or that it's a, you know, oh, I do it for medicine. No, like a vice is a vice. 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 Is a vice is a vice is a vice. And a vice is a vice. And no, I promise you on my life, from watching people that both around the racetrack that did meth and homemade shit, and watching one of the upper echelon people that had access to the cleanest cut coke. It doesn't matter if you do coke or if you do meth. Eventually, you can't do the drugs and them not do you. You can't just for recreational. Oh, just because I'm tired and we still have a huge long drive home. There is no, that's not how it works. And I think it's important for somebody on the outside that has watched so many people fall to drug addiction to be able to tell people, say no when you have the strength to say no, because if you say yes, you're going to get weaker and weaker and weaker until the drugs literally do you. I fully believe that drugs are a low vibrational thing, and that they lower your vibration and allow an entrance for low vibrational beings. You can call them demons. I don't believe in that. I just think they're low vibrational spirits. And when you drink heavy, when you do drugs, you allow your vibration to lower, so you allow access to your spirit and your being. I'm telling you, there are times in my life when I look back and I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking? Why did I do that? Because I was slightly possessed. Like, I literally was vibrating so low that I allowed outside forces or entities to control the way I thought and the way I did things. And I'm telling you, like, where I sit today, I would have never thought, especially at certain points in my life, I would have never thought that. And so I just think I have a lot to teach, and I think that I'm finally being pushed to share the deepest, darkest parts. Like, people online want to talk about me like I'm some kind of horrible person, and I'm like, baby, you ain't seen horrible. You ain't seen horrible. You don't even know. You don't even know. You don't even know horrible. I'm like, you don't even know. But let's get one thing right, is that I'm such living proof that when you start to get your mind right and your vibration right, and you meditate and you pray and you start to vibrate higher, you start to be surrounded by guides and positive entities that send you gifts and the abilities and soften your heart and give you desires that are bigger than anything you could have ever dreamed. You could have, and people sometimes wonder why I get along with certain people better than I do other people, and it's because those people can see my past, the worst parts of it, and relate and not judge me. Like, if you wonder why a lot of the friends that I have are what I keep, it's because they see that part of my life, and it's no judgment, and they know from being around it as well how hard it was to leave behind that kind of money and that kind of relationship, and just to say, this is not for me, this is not what I want. And then I kind of, like I said, I dated a writer. That was a fucking joke. That was, whew, ladies, if you're married to or you date a bull rider, I don't know if yours is just a different breed or if you are a different breed, but kudos to you. I commend you for your effort because I couldn't do it. And then I was single for a while, for like probably a good while, and I met Jacob. And Jacob had just become legally separated, and they were going through a divorce. And so for those people online that have spread rumors that he was married when I met him, that's false. He was separated when I met him. And we were really good friends. And on Christmas Eve is when we like really started talking. And by March, you know, we had lived together. And I think that my attraction to Jacob was that he was just such the opposite of everything in my life. He was a cattle buyer, he worked hard, and he was such a good man. Like, he had his own home, he had his own vehicle, he has never drank, he's never done a drug in his life. Like, he is the most vice-free, just whatever you call it. And so people also have asked, like, so when I found out that Jacob was getting indicted into some issues, why did I stay? And I laughed and I said, the shit that Jacob was going through was such a small drop in the bucket compared to some of the shit I had already been through. Like, yes, at the time it was gut-wrenching for me, but in my mind, I had been trained that you stay loyal. Like, you hold your partner down. You build your partner up. Like, you don't run from their problems. In fact, as a woman, it is your job to take the stress away and to try to create solution. So for those of you who don't know how that happened, it'll also be in the book, but I move in with Jacob and we kind of start our relationship, and Jacob really encourages me to start barrel racing again, and he buys me a trailer and he buys me a truck, and we start buying some horses for me to trade, like some barrel horses, and I get high class Spy Boy, and that horse is winning and I'm winning, and I'm riding better and better, and the more I go, the better we're clocking. And then I got a lead, and that horse had, you know, won the wild card round at Calgary, and like it was going, and I was reselling some very upper end barrel horses, and it was good. It was good for me. It was very therapeutic and healing. Jacob would be gone to sales all the time, and I could go barrel race, and I could be alone, and I was alone a lot. And I just had Violet. We got her as a tiny puppy right after we moved in together, and me and Violet would just set out in the truck and trailer with my horses, and finances were not really a concern at that point, so I could go barrel race and go and buy and resell and kind of delve around in that part of it with no stress. And it was the best thing ever because there was no pressure. At the end of the day, if I hit all 3 barrels and came home with nothing, there was no pressure. There was no, God, you know, and I just got better and better and better and happier and happier and happier, and started to develop my character in a non-vice way. At that point, I think I could lay to rest the raised in El Paso, went through 4 schools, dropped out, worked my ass off, dated a drug dealer, Tara, and I could just be 25-year-old Tara who is living her best life and just reselling some horses. And I don't care what anybody really says about Jacob's felony. I know how it went down, and I know both sides of it, and I know that Jacob was buying cattle for a company. And I think that where people talk about his felony, they say like, but God knew that through that Jacob was going to need me, because Jacob got really, really mentally not okay he was embarrassed. He couldn't believe it was happening. And I think that Jacob has enough pride. I think Jacob, and I'm not going to speak for him, but I think he probably, had he been alone through all of that, I think Jacob would have killed himself. I only know that because there was a veterinarian involved, and there was another buyer from Mississippi involved that worked for the same company. And when that company went down for the money laundering, the theft of livestock, so it was one man at the top, and he was doing a lot of unscrupulous things. And what got Jacob in trouble is, I think by the time that it got busted, he was no longer naive to, or like blind to what was going on. But at that point, he was making so much money, and he had created a lifestyle so big that without that income, I don't think Jacob knew how to make ends meet. So in Jacob's mind, he was just going to keep going until it ran out, because if he stopped and went to work for himself or doing something else, he couldn't support the lifestyle that he had created, that he had brought me into. And so the pressure as a man kept him working in this company that eventually got him in trouble. And what they were doing is they had built a relationship with these buyers in the US, and they would send them to cow sales, and they were paying them like $100 a head or more, which is incredible commission. I mean, no, you can't make that kind of money buying livestock for a cattle company. Like Jacob was making $10,000 or $15,000 a week, you guys, buying cattle for this company. And what they were doing is they were having Jacob buy the cattle, and Jacob would leave a check on Jacob Thompson Cattle at the sale barn. And those cattle would go straight to the feedlots and be refinanced, but for that other company, or they would go straight to the kill plant to be killed, and the money would be wired back to that company. And then that company would instantly wire the money to Jacob to cover the check that Jacob left at the sale barn. So what ended up happening in the end is this guy kind of set all these buyers, and there was a vet also like starting a lot of calves and stuff. What ended up happening was, in the end, about $1.5 million worth of cattle were bought that week, and Jacob leaves the check. You know, he leaves a $250,000 check, and like the cows go to the kill plant, they're killed, the money's wired to the company's head, and the wire never comes to Jacob's account. And he calls and calls, and the wire never comes, and he calls and calls, and the wire never comes. And then about a week later, the police show up, they arrest Jacob, they ransack the house, they do all the stuff and all the things that you would just never fathom. And for me, this isn't my first go around. So what do I know? Nothing. And truthfully, at that point, I really knew nothing. And where Jacob probably got a little more caught up is that Jacob, in his honesty, and probably not also fearing that the cartel would show up and kill him and all of his family members, when he got arrested, and then they started like really pressuring him, I went and paid $80,000, every dollar in our bank account, for an attorney to defend him. But where Jacob and I are different is, I'll tell you, at that point in my life, I would have known nothing. I would have been a victim. I would have pawned everything off, and I would have paid that attorney till I was blue in the face. And Jacob didn't want to do that. When they came down to the nut cutting, Jacob told the truth. He said, I've been buying cattle for this long, and I knew something wasn't right. And they told Jacob that he was facing 99 years in prison. And at that point, they put Jacob out on bond, and I sold everything that I had to go get him from fucking jail. I went and got Jacob from jail, and I brought him home, and he was in such a bad place mentally that it scared me. It scared me. And then the guy in Mississippi killed himself that week when they all got out, and I knew that Jacob was a really good person, and that he wasn't able to handle this kind of stress, because he would have never like once he got arrested and the money wasn't coming, he felt such an immense amount of guilt that the sale barn wasn't paid and the sale barn owners weren't paid, and he was bonded, and so they were able to file part of what he owed on his bond. So P&S paid out at least that amount, but the sale barn was still being left owed hundreds of thousands of dollars. And Jacob felt so guilty, not just because he thought, Jacob thought in his mind, what that guy up there is doing, if he's laundering money, if he's doing whatever, that's on him. But Jacob looked at it like he's buying cattle from all these local farmers and this sale barn, and the money's going. And if you guys ever watch stuff where they talk about in New York how the gangsters were celebrated because they would bring money to the poorer areas and feed people's family and I think Jacob had that mindset a little bit, that like he was taking this guy's money and like contributing it to all of these smaller sale barns, buying these cattle. The market was really high. He was spending money back into these smaller communities. So Jacob had excuses. If I quit now, like by the time he realized that that guy might have been doing unscrupulous things, but we weren't really sure what. I don't know how much he knew. I've never had that conversation. I think he had a lot of excuses and like justification why he kept working. And so when it really came down to it, and he was so honest, Jacob got a plea deal. And instead of racketeering, money laundering, and doing federal time, like they were threatening him 99 years of federal time, which is what the guy that was the head of the company, he got 99 years of federal time, no chance of parole. For Jacob, when he was so honest and so forthcoming, and he just said the least charge that he could take was theft of livestock by kiting checks at a public auction. They offered him a 10-year probation to pay back restitution, and Jacob took the deal. He didn't continue to fight it. He didn't continue to extend us into further debt. Jacob said, I will take the plea so that I can just not continue to fight this. Now, I wanted to fight it because I thought theft of livestock was such a shit charge, because that's not what happened. Jacob didn't back up to somebody's pasture and run their fucking cattle into the trailer and drive off with them. Jacob worked for a company that literally told him to buy these cattle. Here's the order. On contract, he had a contract, and they told him, write the check, give it to the sell barn, and then as soon as the cattle get here, we'll wire the money to you, which will cover your check that will go through the bank in 2 or 3 days. That's not theft. That's just a really shit situation. But in that situation, and because Jacob didn't lie, and he said, I knew that was a possibility, it's called kiting checks. It's considered racketeering. In what the guy at the top was doing was money laundering. It just flat out got Jacob caught up into felony charge of theft of livestock, and that was the least sentence. Theft of livestock in Texas was the least sentence he could take, and all Jacob cared about is that the people that own the sell barn, however, could get paid back. That was his concern. His concern was, how do I pay them back? Like, I never meant, and Jacob has said this, and I mean bawling has said this, I never, ever would have kept going if I would have known that the guy on top was going to do this to the people that own the barn. Like, Jacob had such an immense amount of respect for his peers at that location that it was the most embarrassing, gut-wrenching thing in the world for him. And that's what you guys don't see, especially those who talk so fucking bad about him and share his felony and talk about like, oh, he's a cattle thief and he's this and he's that. You know so little about the situation that you don't even deserve to get to share his mugshots, because you don't know that Jacob could have, Jacob probably could have gone to court and fought this and played the victim and like manipulated this into that he was a victim in this. And I can fully see, and his attorney said it, like, I think you can beat this. You can. And Jacob didn't want to. Jacob wanted to do whatever he could, because here's the thing, if Jacob beats it, the sell barn that he was buying cattle at for that company was never going to get any restitution. They were just going to have to go against the guy that got 99 years. And we were going to have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorneys. And Jacob just wanted to make it right so that at the end of the day, at the end of this decade, he can go shake those two men's hand and tell them, I'm sorry that I did this to y'all. And I worked my ass off over the last decade to absolutely pay every dime of it back, because I would have never done this to you on purpose. And that's what Jacob holds on to at night, is that every month he pays a little, every year, at the end of the year, it's a bigger chunk gone. And a lot of the profit that Jacob makes that you guys don't see is going towards restitution. And that's the thing that you guys don't see. Whenever Jacob is so strict on our rules and Jacob is so strict on what the horses cost, is because this much profit, this much has to go just to restitution to make that right, because he chose to do that. He chose to take a plea deal with restitution. And to me, that speaks volumes about his true character. And y'all share his mugshot like he's some kind of fucking piece of shit. And I've watched him over the last 7 years overcome something to become somebody that he can walk into any sale barn in America and be celebrated. They love him. They shake his hand. They hug him. He can go to any horse sale in any state. He can go to any cow sale in any state. And at the end of the day, nobody at those big barns are afraid of him, because they know one thing, like, no matter what happens, Jacob is going to pay his bills. Jacob is gonna make it right. Jacob is gonna absolutely bend over backwards, and it may not have happened overnight, but Jacob makes an effort. And I'm telling you, when people go, well, how much money you've made, like, you could have stopped. Like, Jacob pays, listen, his restitution a month is unbelievable. His restitution in a year is more than what more people make in a year. And that's just what he owes towards that debt. In the end, with everything, with the load of cattle, with everything, with the expenses of everything, it was over $500,000 that he has to pay back. And I have allowed for years for this to sit in my soul and watch people online tear my daughter's father down and attack him and share his mugshots and spread this narrative that he's a thief and he stole cattle, when that's not how that went down. That's not how that happened. And it's so gut-wrenching to see him be talked about, when if you know him and you know what happened, you would be so proud of him. If you knew me and you knew where I came up from, you would be so proud of me. And for those of you who say things about, like, well, as a grown adult, Terry, you knew better and you made those decisions. And I've had people that kind of know my story say that it makes them respect me even less to know that I was involved in that kind of stuff, because I was an adult and I knew better. Listen, you never know what somebody's going through or where they are in their life when they make a decision, and then it just gets worse. Like, one little action turns into another, and the next thing you know, you're in a full-blown situation that you can't control. My thighs are stuck to this chair. My ass is stuck. My ass is stuck to this chair because I got big thighs, and this chair is like, my thick-thighed girls, anybody on here with your thick thighs ever been stuck to your chair? Anybody else ever had to peel themselves up? Get your ass off the chair. Stuck. My ass is stuck. But I'm telling you guys that I hope that next time somebody calls Jacob a thief or you see his mugshots, I hope you just fucking go to work in the comments. Fuck you. Fuck your article. Fuck the shit that you spread online, because it's fake fucking news. And you know what? The more that I listen to where I came from, which is the mud, which is gangsters, legit gangsters, not fake ones, the more I realize how many rappers and how many people have, like, been to prison and overcame it, and they're celebrated and they're rapping and people are just celebrating them. And then in the Western industry, people are so cruel to one another. Like, why can't we celebrate people's come-ups? Why can't we celebrate people that have failed so drastically? I have an entire table of people that are sitting behind me that have been listening to this in person, and they're just watching me like this and listening to me like this. And I'm like, eat your food. Eat your food. Can you imagine being in a restaurant and there's a girl sitting in the corner and you're one table away, 5 of you, and she's telling her life story in a manner that you're just in shock, and all y'all can do is this. But it needs to stop. All the hate online needs to stop. My daughter is gonna have to sit with me when she gets older, and her mommy's gonna get to tell her about all of her mommy's hood rat shit. And the blessing is that God never left me through any of my hood rat shit. And he built me from the mud, and I wear that shit like war paint. And I came from nothing. And I will tell you that a lot of my problem is that I went to school with a girl that told me that I would be cute if I didn't wear Walmart clothes. And at the back of my mind, all I ever wanted was to be wealthy so that a bitch could never fucking tell me that again. Nobody could ever tease me for not having enough. Nobody could ever say like, oh, she's cute, but they're poor. Like that. And so in my young, impressionable mind, that scarred me. That created enough trauma that I became money-based. I became money-driven. I became so money-driven and wanted to be able to wear things that, I mean, in my mid-20s, I always, like, I mean, I didn't own horses of my own for a couple of years, and all I did was run the streets in a brand new Escalade with my boyfriend. And we would buy, like I said, we would buy match horses. We would buy some horses that I would put a couple of rides on and resell. Like, I'm not saying that I didn't ride, but I'm saying I went a lot of places in some Gucci heels. And now that I'm 35, I am trying to find balance between the Tara that wants to wear heels and be beautiful and be in town, and the Tara that is a horse trader that is very driven and works 7 days a week, that's also a mom. And I'm at a really cool place in my life to where the storms of my life have all come together, and I feel like there's this hurricane brewing inside of me to just open up, like I'm writing the book, I'm sharing with you guys, I'm letting y'all know what I've been through, because I think that the worst thing that we see is we see people that tell you positive vibration, think, I got a Ferrari, I got a 10,000 square foot home, but you guys don't know that person. You know, like, we don't really know what kind of hand-ups or handouts, you know, and we always try to convince ourselves that, like, it might be available to them, but it's not available to us, you know? But no, like, you know where I've been now. Y'all have watched me over the last decade, at least on social media, absolutely come up from nothing, living in a hotel, sharing a vehicle with Jacob that got repossessed, to having to sell everything to go buy another vehicle. Like, listen, you've seen my come up. It's directly in front of you. It's literally in your lap. And then you watched me fight back to an entire world of women that hate me because Jacob was involved with slaughter and that they slaughter horses, and that I am capable of that too, with never knowing my heart, with never knowing what we were up against. You see what I'm saying? I need that in my life. I'm fixing to go order that. They had champagne and orange juice delivered to their table, and I'm like, I need to be with them. They're literally drinking champagne, drinking orange juice, listening to me tell my life story. Not a joke. But I'm writing the book. Hey, do I need to just go back through the line? Or I can? Do I just give her my card?
Yeah, well, I'm at the bar, so.
You're at the bar? Okay, you want my card? Best friend. Probably not an entire bottle, but I will take a, is it just a Mosa? Yeah. Will you put cherries with it? What else do you have?
Pineapple juice.
Let's do pineapple juice, and can I get some cherries, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, I just had to hand her my wallet, which was propping my phone up. She's so cute, you guys. Oh my God, she's cute. She is, I talked to her when I was checking out up there, and she's got the best personality. She said she lives 2 minutes from the stockyards, and I told her, I need your phone number, and I will, like, once a month on your day off, like, I could hold space for her energy. And I've gotten very energy based. Like, I can tell you within 10 minutes of fucking with somebody if they have the kind of energy that I want to fuck with or not. And I either fuck with you or I don't. And if I do, I am down for you. I will do anything that I can for you. If your energy and my energy were a vibe, that's it. That's it. What I hate though, and something I'm having to learn, is there's people I vibe with that have this amazing energy, and they just don't have the ability to I can see their greatness. I can see how badass they are, but like, they have surrounded themselves by such shit people for so long that, like, it doesn't matter how great their energy is, like, they just, they don't know it. And I have to be careful with people like that because I am quick to, like, I'm quick to do anything in the world for somebody only to find out that, like, they wouldn't reciprocate that. They would not reciprocate that. I'm actually going to put the phone back. Nope, I'm not. I don't know. I done fucked it all up. Maybe we should put it in this, like that. There we go. How many of you guys have ever decided to make a live video about your life story while not having a tripod in a public facility? Anybody? No, just me? Oh. I should probably just pack a tripod from now on so that I can just, oh, there we go. That's how I did it. I should probably just pack a tripod from now on so that I can slowly see it moving. I should pack a tripod so that when I do things like this, the camera at least can, like, I should just be prepared. But I woke up this morning with just this immense amount of, like, guilt and shame. And as I jogged, which I hate to run, I jogged around the stockyards and I was like stopping and seeing things that I wanted to buy. That guilt and shame started to go away, and I told myself, the guilt and shame is such a low vibrational shit fucking place to be. Why am I there? And it's because I'm healing from it, which means those traumas and those memories are starting to surface to where I have to deal with them face on, and they make me ashamed. They make me vulnerable. They make me embarrassed. And I just have to come to terms with them. I have to talk about them. I have to let you guys know what's up so that you know what I'm going through. Why have I taken a couple of days away from the farm before Tinley comes home? Because my child, I keep calling and saying, come on, you ready to come home from Grammy's? And they went to the water park, and they went to the petting zoo, and they went to the zoo, and they went to Ruidoso, and they went to the races in Tulsa, and my child is just living her best life. But listen, I did it. I would go stay with my nanny Paula, or I would go stay with my mom's mom for like every other month. When my mom would go on those Texas vacations, my dad was at the racetrack. I couldn't go to the racetrack around racehorses. So I was having to just live with my grandparents, and I would go for like 2 weeks. And it was, I have the best memories of my grandparents. I have the best memories. I mean, just, so I don't rush Tinley home. But when she calls and says she's ready, she's ready. She's ready. But she's part of it. And I love that. I love that she gets to experience that, and that she gets to be around them, because I know all too well that your grandparents don't live forever. And with them goes all of their life lessons. And I just hope that I can share my story, my testimony, my life lessons, because if I can help somebody maybe that doesn't have the raising, doesn't have the mom figure, that maybe doesn't have the dad, like, fuck it, I can be your daddy. Like, my dad raised a man. My dad raised a no-limit fucking soldier, a loyal bitch that will work from sunup to sundown, will hold you down, will build you up. And I think that that's a part of my character that I shouldn't be ashamed of. But I will tell you that learning how to be a people person and to run a business that involves customer service when you have literally been a hood rat your entire life is a work in progress. I've been watching videos on like the CEO's mindset, customer service, and I just learned I don't know a fucking thing about it. I don't know anything about it. I don't know about the customer's always right. I don't know about that. Like that shit was never available to me where I was from. Like, that was never available to me where I was from. But I have to overcome all of that. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, ma'am. Pineapple. I mean, I'll take them both, but
They belong to my Miss Mimosas, but this is a brunch.
Can I get some cherries when you have just a second? No worries. No worries. You don't. I am in no rush. Oh, I was gonna steal that. I gotta take a little bit of your energy with me somehow. Oh my God, it is fantastic. Are y'all's orange juice? Are yours orange juice?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do. I did pineapple and it's fantastic. You do? Yeah. Okay. I said when I end this live video, I said, y'all bought the bottle. I'll be moving to the table next to me as soon as this live video ends. I'm here for it. Yeah, they bought the bottle. They didn't just have their mimosa. I'm like, that's my energy on Saturday morning. Just bring me the bottle. But how many of you, after watching this video, are genuinely shocked and a little bit in awe and had no idea where I came from? Leave a like button if you're just sitting there going, huh, who knew? And how many of you understand now the bond that Jacob and I have? Jacob picked me up out of the mud and he sprayed me off. So when Jacob fell in the mud, I didn't walk away. I picked him up out of the mud and I sprayed him off. And there was a million things available to us through the connections that we had to do very non-legitimate things to get back ahead. And we collectively made the decision that we wanted to do things legitimately. And at that point, I had started rehoming some kill pen horses, and the horses were making the profit, and he was able to go out on his own. But let me tell you, when I tell you that Jacob and I have an immense amount of respect for the horses in our care, despite the way he was raised or his family, I want you to remove everything you ever knew about Thompson Livestock or the Thompsons or all the arrest records in that family. And I want you to know that when Jacob and I sat down and we knew that we were going on our own, we have an immense amount of respect for the horses. Because of those horses, him and I live a lifestyle that is amazing. Him and I live a lifestyle that we are proud of. He is able to pay his restitution. I am able to afford the lifestyle that I crave. My daughter will never have to be where I was. My daughter is never going to have to be in the mud. My daughter is going to be raised to be proud of who she is. She's going to be raised to be hardworking, educated. I'm going to beg her to go to college. If she doesn't go to college, I'm going to be okay with that, and I'm going to help her when she turns 18 to start whatever little business she wants to start. If she's anything like her dad and I, she'll start at 15, not 18. If she wants to go to public school, I'm going to drive her every day. I'll make every ball game. I'm going to be that mom. But if she doesn't, I'm okay with that. If she wants to ride horses, I'll buy the best. But she's going to have to work at it. She's going to have to keep them fit and do the work, or we're not going to go to the barrel race. We're not going to go to the cutting. Whatever that child wants to do, I'm going to do my best to have it available because she's my child. And I can tell you, if she's anything like her mama or her daddy, she's too smart for her own good. And when you're that smart and you hustle that hard, you can go to greatness or you can go to the hood. So I'm going to do everything I can. And I will tell you that in the back of my mind, when I kept not getting pregnant, I kept thinking it was punishment. Like, man, God does not want me to reproduce. God does not want me to reproduce. Like, he broke that mold. And then when I finally got pregnant and I have Tinley, and I look at her and I see how strong-willed and how fierce she is, I know I'm in trouble. I know I'm in trouble. I'm gonna have to. I tell her all the time, I'm not sure if I'm spanking the Sanders out of you or if I'm spanking the Thompson out of you, but by God. And I really don't spank her because my child, if you whip her on the butt, she'll turn around and she is like, Tylen will tell you, he has watched her and her natural instinct is up here, and I'm like, Nobody's ever hit you in your face. Why do you have, like, where did you, like a little fighting Irish man. She is like almost like 3 foot tall fighting Irish man. Like, and I'm like, how is your natural instant instinct to guard your face? Like, where'd you learn that from? Because that wasn't taught to you. That was bred into you. That's genetics. And not a slap. My child will, and I'm like, where, like, nobody's ever fist up that child in her life. You know, nobody's ever, I mean, and this is her, like, and I'm like, okay, Conor McGregor, like, what the, with that curly ass red hair, like, coming for me. I'm telling you that there's been more than one time that she's like boxing my thighs, and I'm like, listen, I'm proud that you have hands, but if you don't keep them to yourself, you're going in the timeout chair. So I'm telling you, genetically speaking, my child is a lot. Cheers to that. But I love her, and I know that she's going to be capable of great things. But I want to know how many of you this morning feel like, after hearing all of my story, you've heard the icing. I haven't given you the individual stories, the scar on my shin from where I got shot. I mean, y'all just have the icing. The book will have the cake, the ingredients, the recipe. Girl, thank you. No, you owe me no apologies. Thank you so much. There's nothing better than cherries and grenadine. How many of you guys love grenadine? I love it. I'm gonna get day drunk. I'm gonna do it the way I like it. I love that she brought me my cherries. They're not in cherry juice, they're in grenadine. Yeah, when she was like, oh, I had the cherries, but she had to go in the back and get the grenadine, I was like, oh, yes, bestie. Yes, ma'am. But I'm just to the point in my life now to where I am ready to change, and I'm ready to love people, and I'm ready to not be afraid of the relationships I build. I'm ready to build lifelong relationships with people that are my life partners. And I used to be afraid of that. I was afraid because I lost Jeremy. People died. I was afraid because I dated somebody that I ride or died for. I built that person, and they put me through hell, you know? And then they loved me, but not enough to stay off of the cocaine. Not enough to go legit. Not enough to lay a lifestyle beside and to hustle hard in a legitimate way so that we could live a normal lifestyle. Love me, but not enough. Friends that were never my friends when the nut cutting came to it would say things to me like, you're so pretty, but you wear Walmart clothes. That same girl, the same bitch that told me in high school, she's now she's like a multi-level marketing consultant, and she's married to a pastor, like at a church. Her name's Alicia. The same girl that told me, you're pretty, but you wear Walmart clothes, recently, not this Christmas, but last Christmas when I went home, I ran into the dollar store to get some Midol because I had a fucking headache. You're gonna love this story. Oh my God, Tara! I didn't recognize you from behind. You've gotten so thick, but when you turned around, your face is just as pretty as ever. How's church, Alicia? Your husband's still preaching the gospel? God's proud of you, I promise. And he loves you just as much as he loves me. But I can see that he's softened one of our hearts and tried to make us a better person. The other one just probably reads from the Bible that has some paragraphs missing. Oh my God, I didn't recognize you from behind. You've gotten so thick. But as soon as you turned around your face, it's just as pretty as ever. Small town America, right, you guys? Anybody on here live in that small town? Anybody on here used to live in that small town and you moved far fucking away and you dread going back? Amen. Me too. Me too. I will never just sitting there going, how's church? God loves you. But this year is about healing all the trauma from my past. Reading all of the Millionaire CEO books, how to build a $1 billion business, how to understand that the customer is always right without compromising your self-worth. Learning to grow a business, to love yourself, to love the people around you, to heal a very broken relationship with my daughter's father, because at the end of the day, you have to remember that Jacob goes to all of these sales, he buys cattle, he buys horses, and he's on the grind 7 days a week, probably works as hard, if not harder than me, and every time my phone rings, do you know what Jacob will call and say, hey, did you sell anything today? Yeah, I did. Okay, well, how's the money coming? Through the website, like it always does, or they Zelled it, or through. And so our relationship for the last 5 years that Jacob's been on probation has been solely based on money. How's the money coming, Tara? Where's the money coming from, Tara? And you have to understand that now when Jacob calls, and him and I are working on this, and I'm going to be very open about this because I know so many of you are struggling in your marriage. We are struggling because the conversations between Jacob and I are money-based. Because right now, his trauma and his focus is getting his restitution paid back so that he can get to the point that he can go shake the hands of the people that own that sale barn and tell them, I have paid you back. I am sorry that that happened. I'm sorry I was a part of that, and I am grateful that I'm grateful. And Jacob is grateful that the businesses we run now, and you know what? The whole time Jacob is just trying to run businesses big enough that he can pay back that kind of restitution. Because let me tell you something, once you take the plea deal, the first thing the attorney told me was, now that you've taken a plea, they can't arrest him if he doesn't pay. So the attorney was saying without saying, hey, fuck them, you don't have to pay them back. Pay the bare minimum. Like when they call and they start giving you some pressure, send them $1,000. Not Jacob. He's gonna pay back all of it. He's gonna pay it in as big of lump sums as we can afford to pay. I got a Jeep, and the day that I bought my Jeep, I've always drove a Mercedes. You guys know that. I was proud when I bought the first one. I was really proud when I bought the second one. But when I got the Jeep, I mean, I gave $62,000 for that motherfucker. It's a loaded. It's not no slouch. Like, I'm proud of it. But sitting next to it was the Jeep Wagoneer, and it was $126,000. And Jacob literally said, I'm sorry that I can't upgrade you yet. And I told him, you don't owe me a fucking apology. I bought the one I wanted. I love this black on black motherfucker. Like, I love my Jeep. My Jeep is like, that is my office on wheels. It is on 24s. Like, listen, I ordered a system and purple lights, and I'm having the front quarter panels of my Jeep wrapped. I'm gonna do like, it's boat paint black, and I'm gonna have leopard. I'm having matte black leopard put down the side of my Jeep on both sides in October. That's the first appointment they have. I got the grill backing on the front that's leopard. I've already got purple lights that I'm putting underneath the front of it, and I'm getting a system for my birthday in September. I may not be the drug dealer, but by God, when I go through Troop America, they're going to pull me over because they're going to think I'm the plug. If not, I'm the plug's old lady. Cheers. And truthfully, I am. Is Jacob not the horse plug? Let's be honest. I am the plug's old lady. Just the horse plug. Just changed a little bit. But Jacob never has backed up from his responsibilities. He's never backed up from what he owes. And what upsets me the most is that Jacob was raised that livestock are livestock. And I'm not saying his family is wrong or right. But I mean, his parents got married at 12 and 13 years old. I just want you guys to process that his mom and dad were married at 12, 13 years old. Michelle had her first baby at 13, his mom. So I want you to understand where he came from. Because when you start to be open-minded and you understand where somebody came from, you understand the limited knowledge. You can all say right is right and wrong is wrong, but all over the United States, you can go to the ghettos of Chicago and the right and wrong there versus the right and wrong in small town Pitkin, America are not going to be the same thing. The culture is different. The mentality is different. The moral compass is different. We don't all share the same moral values. We don't all share the same wrong from right. But what you can understand is where he came from, who he was raised by, to understand also the problems in our relationship. I've watched his mother wait on his father hand and foot, have his clothes ironed, his clothes washed, a meal on the table, him come in and it's not warm enough and her recook an entire meal. I have watched her put his shoes on him. I've watched her take his, and that's, Jacob grew up seeing that, and he ended up with me. He ended up with me. Put your own goddamn shoes on. Can you take my clothes to the dry cleaners? Fuck no. Get them off the floor and take them yourself. Why can't you fucking drive by the dry cleaners? I'm not going that direction. You're going by there. Stop and drop them off. Fuck wrong with you? Your legs broke? Yeah. That's how you know God has a sense of humor. You know God has a sense of humor when you were raised by a mother who has waited on your father hand and foot your entire life. When Jacob goes home, his mother makes backhanded comments at me that are, and listen, she loves me. No. No. She tolerates me. She tolerates me. She'll say shit like, well, I'll cook him a home-cooked meal. There's no telling when the last time he had one was. Bitch, you're right. I've been at the barn since 5 o'clock this morning. It didn't come from me. Miss Sylvia at the cell barn around the corner makes home-cooked meals. We eat there sometimes. She's not wrong. I called my child the other day. She was at Michelle's. Tinley, what are you doing? We're cooking a pie. Michelle in the background. Well, somebody's going to have to teach her these skills. I know she's not going to learn them from you. Like, let me just hold space and tell y'all, you're right. You're right, she's not. That's why I let her come to your house and love you the way she does. Good job, Tinley. Good job learning how to cook a pie. I used to get mad as a motherfucker. Listen, I used to get mad. I would hang up the phone and call Jacob, you go get my fucking daughter. Your mama is wilding out. This is the shit she said to me. And now when she says stuff like that, I'm like, Michelle, I'm so glad you're still alive to teach my daughter that stuff, because you're right. Her mama don't have time for that today. That's why I let her come to your house and stay for the weekend. That way, in case she wants to be a housewife, she's going to have some skills her mama don't have. I used to get mad. I used to get mad, and I would get in my vehicle and I would drive. Like, you talk some shit like that to me, I'm coming to get my kid. Fuck you. No, now I just tell her, you're right. Teach her to bake that pie. You got her doing laundry yet? Like, What else she learning? Because I know that in Michelle's way, that is what, and this is where spiritual growth comes. I used to get so mad at her for saying shit like that to me, that backhanded fucking passive aggressive bullshit. And now I just love her because I know that in Michelle's world, Michelle prides herself on making the best pies. She makes the best greens. She makes amazing coleslaw. And I'm going to tell you, at the end of the day, I pride myself in being able to just tell her, Michelle, thank you so much for teaching my daughter those things. I'm glad that she's going to learn them from you. You're the best at it. You don't want her mama to teach her how to make the pie, Michelle. I'm going to burn that shit. She's got to come to your house and learn. And I want you to just see the difference in my mindset. Two years ago, a year ago, bitch, I was in that little red Mercedes picking my fucking kid up from your smart ass mouth. Fuck you. And your son. And now I'm like, I am so glad that you're still around, Michelle, so that my daughter can learn from you. I'm glad that she's going to learn skills that I can't teach her. It takes a village to raise a good human. My daughter is better than I am. She's going to be better than I am. My daughter's going to be able to make those pies. My daughter is going to be able to sew. My daughter's going to be able to do all of the things that you're going to teach her that I didn't learn. Thank you. Thank you. You're right. You're right. I haven't cooked your son a home-cooked meal. Thank God he still has you in his life so he can come home to you if he wants one. See, it takes a village to raise your son. He's a whole-ass grown child. That's right. You want somebody to take your laundry to the laundromat, or to the dry cleaners, it ain't me, but your mama will do it. You know her address. You want a homemade pie? Michelle makes the best. What flavor? Got one phone call. And I started to learn how to utilize those connections and instead of be mad at them. You're right, I don't make the pie, but she can't sell the horses. You're right, I don't make the pie. I really can't stitch the buttons back on the shirt without making... I tried one time and there was too much thread and she was cutting the button back off, telling me about how I threaded it. I said, listen, I'm just trying to get it on there to the point that it's got enough thread it never breaks again. And she said, yeah, but then it gets hard to put the button in the hole. And I'm like, listen, you do it. This is you. I'm going to go sell the horses. You sew the shirt. And I'm glad that we still have you in our life to do the shit that I don't know how to do. So, hey, what are you doing? Are you up? Oh, what's wrong? Yeah, that's all right. Listen, it's okay. Is he bringing them? All right. We'll just make it work. Hay is hay. I would rather have round rolls, but 150 square rolls. What do we have? 10 round rolls left, maybe? And how many square bells do we have in the bag? Yeah, see? We'll make it work. All right. Bye. So, the problems of the world have started already this morning. My hay man's completely out of hay. Did not bother to tell me until he said, I have 10 round rolls left and that's it, so I can't even bring you a full load. Oh, and by the way, I'm down to 80 square rolls, or 80 square bells, and I'll bring those today, but after this, I'm completely out unless we get some rain. And it left me having to, I wish he would have told me a month ago. So that, he said he was getting low, but he didn't say how low. I thought that I would have till the end of summer. I do not. But it's a blessing because what it's going to allow me to do is find a new hay plug now while people still have hay, because if it would have happened in August and September, people would be completely done baling for sure, and I really would have been in a bind. So it's giving me a little bit of ability to find people that are not completely sold out yet. So it's a blessing. It happened the way it should have. But I don't know, how many of you, I want you to send stars, and love this video if you got any kind of, I think that it's been very hard for me to open up about everything in my life. So I need, right now, just a little bit. You don't have to stroke my ego too much. But if you've been taking away from my videos in the last 2 weeks something that gives you some motivation, that changes your way of thinking, that just sparks the light inside of you to do better, will you give me some loves? Will you just tell me? You can inbox me. You don't have to tell me your life story publicly. I know we're not all there. But why don't those of you who feel like you've taken the meat and the potatoes from these videos, you're welcome to message me. Heather will screenshot it and send it to me. She always does. And I'll read it, and you might just get a thank you so much for your message reply. But I read them, and they're life-changing for me. It is good to know that we're not alone in the struggle. It's good to know that we are not alone in the failure. It's good to know that in our moments that we have failed, that we have overcome, so that we don't lose hope, so that we don't lose ourselves, so that we don't lose motivation and faith that life is worth it. Because hell, at the end of the day, who on here, because I know me, has gotten to the point in your life where you've honestly thought, I've done so much shit in my life I'm not proud of, that my family would be better off without me. I'm a burden. I am a liability. I am not an asset. I am a fucking liability to my family's name. I am a liability to the people around me. I am not a financial asset. I am not an emotional asset. I've been there. Jacob's been there. But God is why I'm here. Because he never stopped chipping away at giving me just enough light to take another step. One day at a time. It's like an elephant. I've had to conquer my demons one at a time. I've had to learn to vibrate high enough. I've had to learn to vibrate high enough that negative energy can't dwell here. See, the darkness never drove out the darkness. My haters never drove out the darkness. My haters continued to push the demons in me. My haters continued to feed the things I hated about myself the most. Because they never listened to where I was going. They always wanted to bring up where I had been. Because that's who they are. They sit at their home and their negative mindset, and they think about where they've been, what they've been through, how unfair it is, how they didn't catch a break in life, and fuck me because I'm succeeding and I'm a bad person. Bitch, you don't know how bad I've been. They'll say shit about me online that doesn't have any truth. It's fake news, and I laugh because I think to myself, if that's the worst you think I've ever done, whew, you don't know. You don't fucking know. But how strong have I been to overcome it? How good has God been to me to keep loving me, to keep pushing me, to keep driving me, to keep breaking down the walls so that I get better. And for those of you who has used God as a weapon, let me let you in on a little secret. In my meditations, I learned from God himself when he spoke to me and he said, using God's name in vain is not saying, oh, God damn. It is when I say, well, I am a Christian and God is going to send you to hell. Or using God as a weapon. When you speak in vain against a fellow Christian who is a believer and you use God as your weapon, when you use his name, you know, well, God wouldn't like that. God wouldn't approve. Listen, you were commanded not to use his name in vain. You were commanded not to be judgmental. You were commanded to love your fucking neighbor as thyself. So as you go to judging me and you go to use God as a weapon, I forgive you. I hope he does too. That's between you and him. It ain't between. I'm going to let you go before God and answer for your sins. And I'm going to go before God and I'm going to answer for mine. And where I am today, I can tell him. I was a sin. I was a walking, problematic sin. And I'm grateful that you never left me. I am grateful that you never gave up on me. I am grateful that you continued to soften my heart and open my eyes. I am grateful And I am sorry. And I hope that in the second half of this life, the rest of this life, I use those blessings and that discernment and that intuition to build everyone around me up, to do better, to make the connections that God has sent me to make, and to build them, and to be a blessing, and to open the doors for other people. And I hope that I always show forgiveness the way I've been forgiven. And I hope those of you that sit around and talk shit about me, soften your heart. Not because I think that you don't deserve to choke on the shit that you've lied about me. Not because I don't think that you deserve to trip up on all the shit that you've said about me that's not true. But because we all deserve to know God's love and light, we all deserve to be happy, and we all deserve to be forgiven. And one thing I can tell you about Jacob and I is that we've had conversations about the horses in our life. And at this point in our life, we have an immense amount of respect for the horses that we make a living off of, because they deserve it. Those horses changed our lives. Every single customer, whether you love me or you hate me or your experience was amazing or it was whatever, you have shaped me on this journey to where I sit today. And I am in a place that I am not only going to change the lives of thousands of more horses, I'm going to start to change the lives of people. Because that's what God called me to do. I didn't wake up and want this, I promise you. Because people like you made me hate people. People like you made me want space. I wanted privacy. I wanted to go be the little shit that I was in private without anybody talking about it. And you know what? God told me, you've got to do better, because the light is shining on you because you chose to jump, and I am going to take you to levels that the whole world will see. And you're going to have to get honest about where you've been, and you got to get honest about where you are, and you got to be honest about everything in your life, because you are going to be with the spotlight on you, and there will be no darkness to hide any of your transgressions in your life. So you've got to get right. Because when you soar and you vibrate, that sight, that's you're in everybody's sight, vibrate and soar equals sight, because you're in everybody's sight. When you vibrate that high and you're soaring that high and the spotlight is on you and there's no place to hide your transgressions. There's no place to hide your sins. There's no place when you make it to here to have a closet, to shut the door, to put the demons and the skeletons in. You don't get that luxury. I don't get that luxury. And I've been a bad motherfucker in my life. And I'm over it. I proved that I could be the baddest. And now I want to be the best. And that's just a different mindset. It's just a mindset shift. I showed everybody just how bad I could be at everything. And now I get to show everybody how great I can be. And I deserve some respect. You may not like me, but I hope after this video you sit there and you chew on everything bad you've ever said about me. And you think to yourself, I still don't fucking like her, but leave me the fuck alone. Seriously. I can't fix the shit I did yesterday. I can't fix the shit I did a week ago. I can't fix the shit I did 5 years ago. But if you want me to be better, you want my staff to be better, you want the horses to do better, you want my customers to have a better experience, give me some space and shut the fuck up and let me grow into my power and into my greatness. And I deserve that. Like I said, you don't have to fucking like me. But I will tell you something. Where God is sending me, there's going to be a lot of people who have hated me that are fixing to have to learn to respect me. You don't have to like me. You don't even have to love me. But I am going to continue to shed all the light in all the dark places and do better by myself, by my family, by my staff, by the horses, by my customers. And what God has put on my heart is every time I was broken, it was not a human that showed up to save me, it was a horse. Every time I was at my darkness, it was not a human that showed up to save me, because all humans have ever done have died, have left me, have disappointed me. But I've learned to forgive them. But horses have never done that. Horses have always shown up when I needed them the most. And I think the connection between the human and the horse is healing. It's healing. It's healing. It's healing. It's very healing. And I want to share that part. Why do women spend thousands and thousands of dollars a year, tens of thousands often, to own a horse, to maintain a horse? Because they give us the ability to be more than we've ever been. And when we need the shoulder to cry on and we need that friendship, there they are. And so what I want to do is to become a better human from a very human place and start to share the connection between human and horse. Even for those people that watch my videos for the spiritual aspect or the growth aspect that have never owned a horse, I want them to go take lessons. Go do a rent by the hour. Go to a farm where they maintain it and just ride a horse. It is the most therapeutic thing in the world. If you've never ridden a horse and you're not a horse person, call a stable and enroll in one weekly lesson. It's like $25 or $35, and it is the best therapy of your life. Start with grooming. Just pay $35 to go brush that horse from nose to tail. Don't even get on it. And you will find that the most powerful thing that God ever gave a human is the smell of a horse. Anybody else ever just smelled their horse and your soul just came at peace to the point that you were just grateful? You were like, this is why I live. It's amazing. Squirt makes me feel some kind of way that no man, no friend, our connection, our flying lead changes, they are so in sync. And I can tell you that I am in Fort Worth, and I can tell you that Squirt right now is like, well, my mom will be here and I'm not going to show up today, and it kills me. I just want to go home and I want to give my horse some cookies. And I think that we all deserve to build a life we don't want a vacation from, and build bonds and friendships with not only the horses in our life, but the people in our life. And I hope, God, I hope that everyone watching this can see what a motherfucker I've been. And what a good person I'm becoming. Be proud of me. I'm proud of myself. But I have to be proud of who I am and where I'm going to keep that goodness and that vibration up. Because right now I've been revisiting a lot of parts of my life that I closed in a closet, that I'm ashamed of, that I am embarrassed of, that I don't want to come to light, that beat me down, that make me feel like I'm not good enough, that when people find this out about me, when people know this, and I can't do that anymore. I can't do it anymore. Because see, the things in my life that I kept locked in that closet, nobody talks about. The things they talk about are things that are not true. Horse Authorities wrote an article several years ago about how somebody got in trouble for animal abuse, and that Jacob and I, people still share that article today, and it's from 2016, and you know what? I was never charged with animal cruelty or starving animals. That never happened. That never happened. Jacob and I had no involvement in that. He's not here, but Jacob and I had no involvement in that. And it's so, I used to be so embarrassed, and now I'm like, that's fake news. That is what social media can do. It can give a sorry human being the ability to write untrue shit about a stranger and post it publicly for views and for attention. And they don't give a fuck if they are ruining somebody's life or accusing them of something they never did, because it's getting them the attention that they want by any means possible. Listen, I haven't needed attention like that since after Jeremy died, and I started throwing this ass around like it was confetti so that somebody would pay attention to me. It's a terrible way to be. And I'm grateful that I'm to a place now that I don't need attention that bad. I love you guys. I'm wrapping this video up, and I probably will not see you guys for the rest of today. Thank you for loving me. It's 11:11. Let's make a wish. All right, you guys, I hope all of y'all's wishes come true. It's such a good angel number. Vibrate high so that negative energy and negative entities can't dwell around you. Focus on the positive. Focus on self-care and self-love. And if you caught this video partway through, you need to go back to the beginning because you'll learn some shit about me that'll make you go, I need a drink too, Tara. Don't worry. I hated me for a long time too. I'm learning to love me. Bye, you guys.